I guess
yeah.
I do not use hypnosis. Most of the researchers believe that hypnotic regression will take these people back and have them relive the experience. I absolutely do not use hypnosis. I never have. And I feel that there are some issues to hypnosis. There are problems of leading people when they're under hypnosis that it will cause them to tell stories and fabricate stories. That can happen. And keep in mind, if you're somebody who's had an experience like this and you recognize what it is because of TV shows or whatever, you're going to search out somebody in the UFO realm to be able to share this experience with. Well, you've set it up right there by doing that, where I don't do that. I come at this from a completely different angle, and people that are willing to share their testimonies with me are ones that would not share with those people. And they know that they don't have to go through a hypnotic regression with me. I don't make them relive the experience. They already remember enough to know that they've got a problem.
Right. So that's interesting, because I would think researchers who want to make a name for themselves would find that very seductive, to use shortcuts like hypnosis to try to get more elaborate details, to actually be a little bit more sensational in their own research to make a name for themselves.
And I do believe that happens sometimes.
Okay. Well, I just found it ironic that you used an example of pest control, because that's almost really what I see what you're doing.
Spiritual pest control.
You run an extermination business, but these bugs are a lot bigger and a lot more serious. But when people have an infestation, you come to the rescue here. So what did this data lead you to as far as coming up some type of determination what was really going on? And how did you get to that point?
Well, being that I was getting testimony after testimony after testimony, once I put myself out there to listen to these people that want to share this, I was seeing the same thing over and over, that there were people coming forth that said that they had had these experiences, and they also had stopped it in the name and authority of Jesus Christ. Through prayer or through calling out, they had been able to stop that experience. And this was a database that wasn't being looked at. Actually, it was being kind of hid.
I was going to say it's probably discarded. Yeah.
Well, discarded is a good word, because I did talk to some of these leading researchers in abductions, and they said that they had had these cases also.
And they look at it as an outlying data point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I asked them, if you've come across cases like this, why have you not shared this? And I usually got two answers from them, and they always ask to go off the record, which means I can tell you what they said but not who said it. But what they said was, well, we didn't know what to make of it. And I would have been fine with that, but it was the second thing they said that caught my attention. And it was usually, from every one of them, we didn't want to go there because it would affect our credibility in the realm. They didn't want to bring religion into the UFO realm. Well, if they didn't want to go there, that means they chose not to do this.
Yeah, they're dishonest researchers then. Yeah.
They were covering up.
Yeah, if you're going to operate like that, you might as well be a politician.
Exactly. Well, I told them, I said, if this database is there, you're telling me there's more cases like this, I'm going to go find them, and I'm going to document this database, that this is happening with these people, that they are able to stop this experience. And you know what they said? Please do, because we can't. And over the years, not one of those people that I talked to has ever come against my research. The ones that I didn't talk to have come against my research very avidly. And I've had to deal with that with a number of these guys. But
so are you the bad cop of the UFO field? you do the dirty work that they can't touch with a 10-foot pole because it might hit to their book sales. But you ask the questions they dare not ask.
Well, I've actually used the term in a couple of my talks that I've done in Roswell. I use the term that I'm the most hated man in ufology.
But we are in the radio field, so we understand.
You understand. But I knew that this had to be documented to get the message out, to be able to share it with people. How many cases do you need to see? And over the 10 years as a Christian and actually dealing with the truth in this, I now have worked with over 350 cases personally myself. And again, I say, how many testimonies does it take for you to understand that this is actually happening with these people, that they can stop this experience, and not only stop it, they can terminate it from happening in their life. And it's through the name and authority of Jesus Christ. And because of that, I had to look, as a researcher, what the biblical record said concerning this experience, and why did this name make it stop?
Hey Joe, can you clarify just a little bit? What were the kind of examples of what you saw? What did people do? The context in which they brought it up, and then what happened immediately that led you to see that there was something significant there?
Well, as they were sharing the experience, I realized that these people were Christian people, and that's something that puzzled me from the beginning, because Christians believe that they're not able to be affected by this type of experience. But something that we had to look at and look at real hard were the type of Christians these people were. And what we were able to see and make a difference of is there's a difference of a walk-the-walk Christian and a talk-to-talk Christian. But that talk-to-talk Christian is still a Christian. He may not be walking the walk, but he still has that faith. He still has that belief. And when he gets in trouble, he can still call out for help and still get that same help.
So just like the prodigal son, a prodigal
Absolutely.
son is still a son, and when it's time to go back and see Dad, when he's really in trouble, Dad is there with arms open.
Absolutely. Good analogy. And what it comes down to, I've had the term thrown at me before, is, there's no unbelievers in the foxhole, and that's something you have to look at too. And a lot of these people we've come across have been unbelievers, but they were raised as children in the church. They knew about God and about Jesus and about Christianity, but they chose not to accept it. But at some point in their life, when an experience like this happens, guess what name comes up? And guess what name worked? Well, these people's lives were changed from that point on. They saw firsthand that this name and authority is real, and it's something that it can be touched and accepted, and that changes their life from there on.
Would they just immediately disappear? Would they just say, "Help me, Jesus," or something like that, and these images just totally disappeared?
Yes, and actually, they would actually fade out. They would actually disappear completely. The people would wake up. A number of different ways this would happen. There are people who said that they've still been harassed by them, and that's something we had to look at also. Why did it continue when with other people it didn't continue? And that's something in our research we saw, that when we take them through the steps of actually helping them be set free from this experience, we go through a process of finding open doors that they have still open, that we have to help them close. Because
now, when you say open doors, what do you could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Sure. One thing that the secular realm has been asking from time beginning in all of this UFO research is, why do these people have the abduction experience? They have no answer for that. But we did find an answer. We actually found 3 answers, and it can be one of 3 ways that this happens to a person. One, you could openly ask for it. And believe me, there's people that do that. I go to these UFO conferences, and there's people that are saying, man, I'd love to have that experience to see what it is. You need to be careful what you ask for. It's hard to believe people do that, but they do. They see these shows on TV, and they're enticed by them, and they want to experience it themselves. Be careful what you ask for. The second one we came across was people that said they had never done that, but yet they were still having the experience. And then we started looking into what they were doing and how they were living their lives, and we found that there were a lot of ungodly doors that were open that were allowing this experience to happen, allowing the entities behind the experience to mess with their lives. And that's an open door. The one that puzzled us the most was when we had adults coming to us and said, well, I've had this experience since I was a child. I remember having this experience at 5 and 6 and 7 years old. Well, that puzzled us at first, because how could that person at that age openly ask for it? They didn't. They didn't even know about this phenomenon. And did they unknowingly open any doors? Well, they're pretty innocent at that age. So that puzzled us and made us start looking at what else could be causing this at that age. Well, we started asking them about their family life, and we found open doors in the family life. And the parents were into bizarre things and ungodly things. And that, looking in Scripture, remember, Scripture tells us that the head of the household is the spiritual covering of that household. Well, they didn't have their head of the household as a spiritual covering. And if they don't have that spiritual covering, then that family is open to all sorts of influence, demonic influence. So it's very careful that the head of the household puts that spiritual covering over their family, because then their family's protected. If you don't do that, your family's left wide open.
So it's
And
just
that's
like
something we found.
it's just like a father that had to put the blood on the doorpost and the lintel to protect his eldest son when Passover occurred.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important. You know, in biblical theology, the man is the head of the household and the spiritual head of the household, and he needs to take that place. And a lot of times we don't see that in this society. It's becoming less and less, and that's a lot of because of what the secular realm is doing, you know, trying to put the man not on the pedestal that God had put him on, and trying to, the whole thing with women's rights and equality and all of that stuff, it kind of degrades the man and puts him in a lesser position than what he was actually initiated to be from the beginning. And that's something that needs to be taken back.
And we see examples in Scripture with gentlemen like Eli, who didn't take that position with his sons, and they sinned greatly, or King David, who left an opening that afflicted his entire family afterwards because of his own weakness of leadership.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So we're able to go back and see how this experience came into these people's lives. And it was always through some type of doorway that was opened, whether unknowingly, whether you actually asked for it, or whether you had that door opened for you, you know, when you were younger. And this is something that needs to be closed, you know, to be able to halt this experience.
Wow. So before we rudely interrupted you, you were going to explain about searching in the Bible for answers. What did the Bible show you to try to explain this mysterious activity?
Well, the one thing that I knew had to be in Scripture, if this was all seemingly to be based from the Scripture, the piece that seemed to be missing is, where is that Scripture that would explain how these people are able to stop this experience? And I started out with Ephesians 6:12, which explains who these entities are. There's a hierarchy in the demonic realm, and these entities are part of that hierarchy. They're not flesh and blood. They're spiritual entities, and they're the ones that are harassing people with this experience. And this experience is just a part of a major deception.
So you don't mince words. You immediately went to the understanding that their behavior replicated what you saw in Scripture, that was according to the kind of behavior of demonic beings and what their motives were in Scripture. That there's an overlap. What were the kind of things they did that made you think, this is the same kind of actions we see in Scripture?
Well, Ephesians 6:12 talks about a hierarchy of the demonic realm. And what we were seeing and understanding what demons and angels are is, we understand what demons are and how they work. We see they constantly want to have a possession of a person or a physical being. We don't see that with these UFO entities. We see something entirely different. Possession is not something that comes up in the UFO realm. It's a demonic influence. Well, that takes it into a different part of that hierarchy of the demonic realm. And what part is that? Well, when you start looking at the abilities that are described of these particular UFO alien entities, it's very angelic in nature. What you see in Scripture, the ability of God's angels through Scripture, how they're able to come into the flesh and appear as human beings, and they can eat, and everybody assumes that they're human, but they're angels. Lot in his family was a prime example.
Right.
They have that ability. We've also seen how they have the ability to pass through something or change appearance. This is an angelic ability. Well, we know that in Scripture they talk of fallen angels. A third of the host of heaven fell with Lucifer. Those are angelic beings. And what we feel that we're dealing with here in the UFO realm with these alien entities are demonic fallen angels. Their abilities are angelic in nature. It's not a technology which the secular realm mistakes it for, and that's something that I bring up in my talks. What we're seeing here is not high technology. What we're seeing here is just these entities' abilities to do what they do. But the secular realm doesn't want to accept that, because to accept that comes consequences of believing that God is real, the Bible's real,
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah.
Right.